My name is Nathan Bereck, and my stalker is living in between the walls of my room. I live in a dorm room by myself at Midwestern Plains University, and my dorm is one of many on campus. Considering how many security personnel are spread across the entire campus and how many live in this building beside me, I find it hard to believe that not one person saw my stalker get in here and destroy part of the wall so that way she could get closer to me. What's stranger than that is there wasn't a hole in the wall. No one saw anything, including security, and not one person heard anything at all. And I don't understand because I heard her in my walls and I don't know how she got in there. I am recording this message because she's trying to bring about my end.
Welcome to this Lost Tapes episode where we will plunge into the puzzling demise of Nathan Bereck, a Midwestern Plains University student who was found in the university's spirit spring, a shallow wishing well encircling the university's mascot, a bumblebee. Midwestern Plains University, a school situated in Ames, Iowa, reported Nathan's death to the authorities on May 29, 2023 at 10:32 a.m., and he was pronounced dead at the scene at 10:47 a.m. that same morning. Nathan Bereck was a history buff who enjoyed baseball. He had been awarded a full-ride scholarship for his talents with regards to baseball and came to Iowa with high hopes for a new life. In this new life, he wanted two things: to play baseball and get a girlfriend.
I left all of my friends behind in Kentucky, but they also left everyone else behind. No matter how much my mom and dad tried to tell me that this sort of thing is common, I still couldn't believe it. High school, it was over. All of my friends moved away, and me and my girlfriend of 2 years, we broke up because she's going to a different college and I'm going to a different college. We ended things on good terms, but things weren't that great with her anyways. But here I was, full ride scholarship, play some baseball, get a girlfriend, and one night, just after moving in, I saw her, a girl, a beautiful girl. She had black hair, a round face, hazel eyes, and she was just overall beautiful. She was sitting alone in the hallway just outside my dorm, reading a book. I don't know what the book was about or even what the title was, but anyways, I went into my room to freshen up, comb the hair, swoosh some mouthwash, and practice my pickup lines, right? So I stepped out there to see if she was still there, and she was. I closed my dorm room door for less than a second, to practice my pickup line one last time, and then I opened the door again, and then she was gone. She vanished.
Detectives from the Ames Police Department worked in conjunction with the university police and reviewed CCTV footage which showed Nathan leave his dorm room at 11:42 p.m. the night before his demise and walk from his dorm room building to the spirit spring, where he then dropped to his knees and submerged his face into the water. Lead detective Andrea Kissack alluded to his death as a self-termination, but Nathan's mother refuted such a statement, indicating that no sane person would voluntarily drown themselves, and her son, he was sane. She also elaborated on the last conversation she had with Nathan, which pertained to a new girl he had just met, and that their first date would be the following weekend. Once the results of the autopsy were in, it had been concluded that Nathan passed away from cardiac arrest at approximately 8:30 p.m., May 27th, at least an entire day before he was discovered on May 29th, and the state of decomposition of his skin was quite advanced. As such, the coroner issued a statement declaring Nathan had been dead for at least 26 hours before he walked to the spirit spring.
I stood in that hall and I looked around for her. I was the only person there, and there is absolutely no way she could have gotten away from me so fast. I know that sounds creepy, but I mean it in the kind of sense of there's no way she could have walked down the hallway in less than the 2 seconds it took me to practice my pickup line. But either way, I gave up hope and returned to my dorm where, for the next 2 hours, I did homework and then fell asleep. 2 days passed before I saw her again. She sat at the edge of the spirit spring, reading something. I think the book was black, and written across it were letters and symbols I couldn't understand, but that didn't matter. I saw her down there, and this is my opportunity. I approached her, and she smiled. Today she wore black lipstick, black lace dress, and gloves, and looked paler today than the other night. It clicked then. She's a goth kind of girl. She said her name is Elvira Luna. I chuckled when she told me because I thought she made it up. But she showed me her ID. That's her real name. And then, you know what? That's actually a pretty cool name. We scheduled our first date, nothing too fancy, just coffee at the cafeteria this weekend, and then I left. Later that night, when I was doing homework, I saw Elvira standing outside of my dorm room window. I'm about 3 stories high, and when I was looking down, there she was, out in the courtyard, down there, staring at me. She seemed to be faintly glowing. I blinked, and then she vanished again.
Nathan's mother, Janice, rejected the findings of the autopsy report and pleaded for a second autopsy to be performed, as she couldn't fathom how her son could have been deceased for 26 hours and then walk to the spirit spring and then proceed to drown himself. She stated that the coroner was a quack and hired a private forensic pathologist to provide a second opinion. The conclusion of the second autopsy corroborated the findings of the first examination. Janice rejected both autopsy reports and tried to hire a third consultant, but was denied. She issued a statement for the local paper, the Ames Gazette. The statement read, "I didn't raise no zombie. These people out here saying he was a walking corpse and he done gone put himself in the fountain. This is a conspiracy and my son deserves justice. He ain't never been there, had no plans of ever being a zombie. Get it together, you people."
I've talked to Elvira a bit more. For some reason, she likes to hang out by the spirit spring and reads the same book at the same time every day. It's been about 2 weeks now since we first met, and sometimes I'll see her standing outside my window or down the hall, and on one occasion I awoke to her standing over my bed. When we had our coffee date a few weeks ago, I wasn't quite expecting that. She was a pretty soft-spoken girl, and she enjoyed her coffee, but now I don't know what to make of it. When I do see her, I don't know what to do. And so I decided maybe there's somebody walking around who just looks like her, or maybe our paths just cross way more than I thought they did. But either way, I asked her just straight up if she walks past my window at night, not in a creepy way, just kind of walking by and happening to pass in front of my window on her way to her dorm or her class, or, well, you know what? Now that I think about it, I've never seen her go into a dorm. Right, that's strange. I've actually never seen her in class, or the halls either, for that matter. I've only seen her outside of my dorm room window. As I thought about that, something scratched from the inside of my wall. I listened, because now the sound of fingernails scraping across the drywall, it arrested my attention. I couldn't really think about anything else. And I'll be honest, it kind of freaked me out because the scratching, it's not stopping, it just keeps going and going. And I tapped against the wall, and that didn't make it stop. I knocked on it, that didn't make it stop. And if anything, it made the scratching louder. And so I'm getting out of here. I opened the door to my room, and Elvira stood right there.
Once Nathan's funeral had concluded and the last of his farewells had been spoken, Janice left Oakwood Memorial Cemetery and returned to her mobile home. Baseball plaques with her son's name engraved on them captured her attention. She glanced at each one and set her purse down on a copy of the Ames Gazette. Though her son had now been buried and her heart still ached, she didn't know what to do. She stood idle, still, in the kitchen, and then her phone rang, and on the other side of the line was Nathan's old friend from high school. He mentioned that he had seen a viral video clip of a boy sitting at the Spirit Spring at Midwestern Plains University. Janice opened her laptop and saw the video in question. Sitting before her at the Spirit Spring was Nathan, reading a black book with strange symbols. He looked up at the individual recording and then vanished. Janice closed the laptop and felt her heart leap out of her chest.
I looked at Elvira, and she had a curved smile, and I'll be honest, it made my heart flutter and it swayed me. I don't want to say that this is love, because I obviously don't love her. I've only known her a few weeks, but I like it. I like the butterflies. I like being seen. And she pressed her palms against my chest and pushed me into the dorm, and I admit I liked it. I fell on top of the bed, and the scratching in the walls, it resumed. I glanced at the wall and then at Elvira. She didn't seem to hear it, and so I didn't say anything, but I could hear it. I asked her to listen to see if she heard anything at all, and then she did. As she climbed on top of me, I felt a cold air wash over me. The scratching became louder, and now I heard footsteps in the wall. I looked at Elvira, and she didn't seem to notice. I looked at her body, and I felt those butterflies, but at the same time, I think I started to shiver. The footsteps, they returned in the wall. Footsteps, as though someone were walking on the wall. Elvira pushed my wrists down and pressed her lips against my neck. They were ice cold, deathly cold, but yet it felt good. I snapped away from her and sat up. In her place was a cold, icy mist. It made up her form, her shape, and for a moment I think I could see her face in this mist. I realized then, Elvira, she doesn't exist. She's a ghost. I sat up in the bed, and in her place were floating, glimmering beads of ice. They seemed to melt away and smoke as though they were made of dry ice when I pushed them away. The scratching within the walls resumed, and as I sat there, someone or something beat against the wall. They punched the wall. I heard 3 words just then. Let me out. It was Elvira. It was her voice. What happened? How is she in the wall? I sucked down a deep breath of icy air and felt its chill against my skin. My teeth chattered as I remained frozen. More words carried by a whisper. Let me out. I can't breathe. She's in the wall. I cannot let her out. I waited. 2 words were carried by the wind. I'm drowning. I glanced at the Spirit Spring, and then I saw her. I saw other people as well. 3 jocks pushing her down, holding her head under the water. I spent the last 3 days doing research on Elvira Luna. There aren't any student records pertaining to her. There's no record of anyone drowning in that spirit spring, and I did an obituary search. Elvira doesn't exist, and she never did. I don't know who or what that entity is or what she wants, but every night at 12:47 a.m., the same thing happens. I hear her cries. I hear the scratching in the walls. I hear her begging for me to let her out. I see them over at the spirit spring holding her head underwater, and I can't do anything about it. I've asked to be moved to a different room. The school won't do it. I've seen Elvira sitting at the spirit spring in the day, drowning at night, but I've started avoiding her because I don't know what to do. I've kept this from my mom. She would freak out if I ever told her about this, but tonight, I think that maybe I can save her. Maybe this is an issue where a spirit isn't at rest and the spirit just needs to be acknowledged for her to move on. So I think I'm going to try and help her. I was sleeping when I felt icy lips pressed against my neck, and I felt her weight press upon me. She kissed my collarbone and then my chest. I swear I felt my heart race and then burst. Time passed for I don't know how long, and then I opened my eyes, but that doesn't matter. I heard them outside again. As I sat in the still air, and the moonlight invaded my room, the sound of nails scratching against the drywall birthed into existence. They dragged slowly and faded to silence, only to return a few moments later. I stood up and left my room with the intent to put this to rest. I left the dormitories and approached the group of people submerging Elvira's head, and once I was halfway there, they pushed her all the way in. For a moment, I forgot she was a ghost, and I sprinted for her aid. The men who were tormenting her disappeared once I arrived. I looked down into the spirit well, and there I saw her. At the bottom, flailing, screaming, desperate to be free. There she was at the bottom, stuck, trapped. I reached into the water and extended for her hand. She grabbed it. When she pulled, I yanked my hand away from hers and glanced around. I felt as though needles punctured my skin, and I felt as though my hand was frozen, but I could hear her screaming underwater, flailing. She's down there drowning, and I noticed something odd about myself. My hands were translucent. I can see through them just slightly. I can't be dead. When would I have died? I removed my tape recorder from my pocket so that way someone may find this tape. I think this time I can rescue Elvira and hold on a little bit longer when I reach in there, and maybe I'll be able to pull her from the bottom of the spirit spring. I can save her and help her soul come to rest. Goodbye.